Maintaining a consistent sleep schedule for brain recovery. Maintaining a consistent sleep schedule is one of the most underrated habits for brain health. Most people believe sleep problems happen because they do not get enough hours. In reality, the bigger issue is usually irregular timing. You can sleep 8 hours and still feel tired if your sleep schedule keeps changing. The brain does not respond well to unpredictability. It needs rhythm. Think about how most people sleep. One night they sleep early, the next night very late. Weekdays are strict, weekends are relaxed. From the brain's point of view, this feels like constant travel between time zones. It never knows when to fully shut down and recover. As a result, repair processes stay incomplete. This shows up in daily life in subtle ways. Memory becomes weaker. Focus drops faster. Small tasks feel heavier than they should. Emotions become harder to control. Students notice this during exams. Working adults feel it on Monday mornings. Parents experience it as ongoing mental fatigue. The brain is always playing catch-up. What many people do not realize is that the brain cares more about consistency than perfection. It does not need you to sleep early every single night. It needs you to sleep at roughly the same time every night. When sleep timing is stable, the brain prepares for rest in advance. Hormones release on schedule. Neurons repair more efficiently. Memories move into long-term storage properly. When sleep timing changes daily, this internal clock becomes unstable. Sleeping longer does not fix this problem. Catching up on sleep during weekends often makes things worse. The clock resets again, and Monday becomes difficult. This is why people feel tired even after long weekend sleep. Another common issue is late-night stimulation. Studying late, scrolling on the phone, or sitting under bright lights tells the brain that it is still daytime. The brain delays recovery even if you lie in bed. The result is lighter, less restorative sleep. The solution does not require extreme discipline. It requires structure. The easiest place to start is your wake-up time. Choose one wake-up time and keep it consistent every day, including weekends. Then choose a bedtime window instead of a fixed minute. A range of about 30 minutes is enough. In the morning, get some natural light to signal the start of the day. At night, slow down. Dim lights. Calmer activities. Let the brain wind down naturally. When this routine is followed consistently, the brain adjusts on its own. Focus improves within a few days. Mental clarity returns. Learning becomes easier. Emotional reactions soften. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the difference becomes clear. This habit benefits everyone. Students remember information better. Working adults think more clearly and feel less drained. Parents feel more patient and emotionally balanced. And the best part is that it does not require money, tools, or complicated systems. It only requires timing. Here is a simple challenge. Choose one sleep time and one wake-up time. Follow it for 7 days. Commit to it fully. A stronger brain does not come from pushing harder. It comes from creating rhythm. Same time, every night. Your brain will handle the rest. Creating a calming pre-sleep routine to improve memory consolidation. Most people think sleep alone improves memory. That is only half true. What you do before sleep matters just as much as sleep itself. The brain does not instantly switch from activity mode to repair mode. It needs a transition. A calming pre-sleep routine gives the brain that signal and allows memory consolidation to happen properly. During the day, your brain collects information, facts, conversations, lessons, emotions. But these memories are not stored properly right away. They sit in short-term storage. At night, especially during deep sleep, the brain organizes this information. Important memories are strengthened. Useless details are discarded. This process only works well when the brain enters sleep in a calm state. When you go to bed stressed, overstimulated, or mentally busy, memory consolidation suffers. The brain stays alert longer than it should. Sleep becomes lighter. You may sleep for many hours, but the quality of that sleep is poor. This is why students often forget what they studied the night before an exam, even after sleeping. A calming pre-sleep routine prepares the brain for recovery. It tells the nervous system that the day is ending. It lowers mental noise. It slows the body. Over time, the brain begins to associate this routine with rest, making it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep. A good routine does not need to be long or complicated. It needs to be consistent. Start about 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. Reduce bright lights. Move away from screens if possible. Loud content and fast scrolling keep the brain alert. Instead, choose calm activities. Reading something light, gentle stretching. Writing a short note about the day. Even sitting quietly for a few minutes helps. One powerful habit is reviewing the day briefly. You do not need to revise everything. Just think about what you learned or experienced. This signals the brain that this information matters. It improves memory storage during sleep. Another helpful habit is slowing your breathing. Slow breathing lowers stress hormones and helps the brain shift into rest mode. Avoid turning bedtime into planning time. Many people lie in bed thinking about tomorrow. This activates problem-solving circuits in the brain. If thoughts come up, acknowledge them and return to the routine. The goal is not to control thoughts, but to reduce stimulation. Over time, this routine becomes automatic. The brain begins to calm down as soon as the routine starts. Falling asleep becomes easier. Night awakenings reduce. Memory improves without extra effort. This habit is especially useful for students, professionals, and anyone learning new skills. You are not studying more. You are letting the brain store information better. A calm night leads to a sharper morning. Creating a pre-sleep routine is not about doing more. It is about ending the day the right way. Eliminating screen exposure before bedtime to protect sleep quality. Most people know screens affect sleep, but very few understand how deeply they interfere with brain recovery. The problem is not just screen time, it is screen timing. Using phones, laptops, or televisions close to bedtime sends the wrong signal to the brain at the worst possible moment. Your brain uses light to decide whether it should stay alert or shut down. Screens emit bright light that mimics daytime conditions. When your eyes receive that light at night, the brain delays the release of sleep-related hormones. This pushes sleep onset later and reduces sleep depth. You may fall asleep eventually, but the sleep is lighter and less restorative. Another issue is mental stimulation. Screens are not passive. Messages, videos, notifications, and endless scrolling keep the brain engaged. Even content that feels relaxing still activates attention systems. The brain stays in processing mode instead of shifting into recovery mode. This makes it harder to fall asleep and easier to wake up during the night. Many people believe they can wind down by scrolling in bed. In reality, this habit trains the brain to associate the bed with activity instead of rest. Over time, the brain stops recognizing bedtime as a signal to slow down. This creates a cycle where sleep feels difficult even when you are physically tired. Poor sleep quality shows up the next day in clear ways. Focus drops faster, memory feels weaker, emotional reactions become stronger, small problems feel bigger. This is not a motivation issue, it is a recovery issue. Eliminating screens before bedtime protects sleep quality by giving the brain a clear boundary between day and night. You do not need to quit screens completely. You need to create a cut-off point. 30 to 60 minutes before sleep is enough to make a difference. During this time, reduce bright lights and switch to low stimulation activities. Reading printed material, light stretching, journaling, or quiet conversation helps the brain slow down naturally. These activities do not demand rapid attention shifts, so the nervous system begins to relax. If removing screens feels difficult at first, start small. Set a fixed time when screens go away. Place the phone outside the bedroom if possible. Use an alarm clock instead of your phone. These small changes remove temptation and make consistency easier. Over time, the brain adapts quickly. Falling asleep becomes easier. Night awakenings reduce. Morning energy improves. Sleep feels deeper even if total hours stay the same. This habit is especially important for students, professionals, and anyone who relies on mental performance. You are not giving something up. You are protecting the quality of your recovery. Eliminating screen exposure before bedtime is one of the simplest ways to improve sleep without adding effort. When the brain gets the right signals at night, it performs better during the day. Practicing regular cardiovascular exercise to enhance brain blood flow. Most people think exercise is mainly about fitness or appearance. The brain is rarely part of that discussion. But regular cardiovascular exercise plays a major role in how well your brain functions. One of the biggest reasons is blood flow. The brain depends on a steady and efficient blood supply to stay sharp. Your brain uses a lot of energy. To function properly, it needs oxygen and nutrients delivered constantly through blood. When blood flow is poor, the brain does not get what it needs. Focus drops quickly. Thinking feels slower. Mental fatigue shows up earlier than it should. Over time, memory and learning also suffer. Cardiovascular exercise directly improves this system. Activities like brisk walking, jogging, cycling, or skipping raise your heart rate. This stronger heartbeat pushes more blood through the body, including the brain. With better circulation, brain cells receive more oxygen and nutrients. At the same time, waste products are cleared out more efficiently. This creates a healthier environment for brain cells to work and recover. Regular cardio exercise also supports the brain's ability to adapt and learn. It helps strengthen connections between brain cells and supports the formation of new ones. This improves mental flexibility, which is the brain's ability to process information, switch between tasks, and learn new skills. Many people notice that their thinking feels clearer and more organized when exercise becomes a regular habit. Another important benefit is stress control. Long-term stress interferes with memory, focus, and emotional balance. Cardiovascular exercise helps regulate stress hormones. After movement, the nervous system shifts into a calmer state. This makes it easier to concentrate and manage emotions throughout the day. Many people assume they need intense workouts to benefit the brain. That is not true. Consistency matters far more than intensity. Moderate exercise done regularly is enough. Even 20 to 30 minutes a day can improve brain blood flow over time. A common mistake is exercising only occasionally. One hard workout followed by long gaps does little for brain health. The brain responds better to steady signals. Simple routines work best. A daily walk. A short jog. A regular cycling habit. These are easier to maintain and more effective in the long run. The benefits build gradually. Focus lasts longer. Mental energy improves. Learning feels less tiring. Sleep quality often improves as well, which further supports brain recovery. Practicing regular cardiovascular exercise is not about pushing limits. It is about meeting the brain's basic needs. When blood flow improves, brain performance follows naturally. Building a daily walking habit to improve focus and reduce stress. Walking is one of the simplest habits, yet it has a powerful effect on the brain. A daily walking habit does not just benefit the body, it directly improves focus, mental clarity, and stress control. Many people underestimate walking because it feels too easy. But for the brain, steady movement is exactly what it needs. When you walk, especially at a comfortable pace, blood circulation improves throughout the body. This includes the brain. Better blood flow means more oxygen, and nutrients reach brain cells. As a result, thinking becomes clearer and attention lasts longer. This is why many people find that problems feel easier to solve while walking. Walking also has a strong calming effect on the nervous system. Modern life keeps the brain in a constant state of alertness. Deadlines, notifications, and mental pressure build stress quietly throughout the day. Walking helps release this tension. It lowers stress hormones and helps the brain shift into a more balanced state. After a walk, the mind often feels lighter and more settled. Another benefit of walking is mental space. When you walk without heavy distractions, the brain gets a break from constant input. Thoughts slow down. Focus improves naturally. This makes walking especially useful before studying, working, or making decisions. Many people notice they return from a walk feeling more organized mentally. A daily walking habit also supports emotional regulation. Stress and anxiety often come from stored mental energy with no outlet. Walking gives the brain a way to process emotions gently. It is not intense enough to overwhelm the system, but active enough to release built-up tension. This is why walking regularly can improve mood over time. You do not need long or fast walks to see benefits. Consistency matters more than distance. Even 20 minutes a day is enough to support brain health. What matters is making walking a routine, not an occasional activity. The brain responds best to repeated signals. One common mistake is treating walking as optional. When days get busy, walking is often the first thing removed. Over time, stress builds and focus suffers. Treating walking as a non-negotiable habit protects mental health. Walking outdoors adds extra benefits. Natural light and fresh air support brain rhythm and alertness. But even indoor walking is helpful if outdoor options are limited. This habit works for all ages. Students improve concentration, working adults reduce mental fatigue, parents gain emotional balance. Walking is not about exercise performance. It is about giving the brain space to reset. Building a daily walking habit is one of the easiest ways to support focus and reduce stress. Simple movement creates lasting mental clarity when done consistently. Incorporating brief movement breaks to refresh mental energy. Mental fatigue often builds up quietly. You may not notice it right away, but after long periods of sitting and focusing, the brain starts to slow down. Attention drops. Small tasks feel harder. Motivation fades. Many people respond by pushing harder or increasing screen time, but this usually makes things worse. A more effective solution is brief movement breaks. The brain is not designed to stay focused for hours without interruption. When you sit for long stretches, blood circulation slows down, oxygen delivery to the brain reduces slightly, and mental energy begins to decline. This does not mean you are lazy or unfocused. It means your brain needs a reset. Brief movement breaks help restore that balance. Simple movements like standing up, stretching, walking for a few minutes, or doing light body movements increase blood flow. This sends fresh oxygen and nutrients to the brain. As circulation improves, mental clarity returns. Focus becomes sharper without extra effort. Movement breaks also help regulate stress. Continuous work keeps the nervous system in a low-level alert state. Over time, this creates tension and irritability. Short movement breaks interrupt this pattern. They signal safety to the nervous system and reduce built-up stress. Even a few minutes of movement can calm the mind and reset emotional balance. Another benefit of movement breaks is improved productivity. Many people believe stopping work will slow them down. In reality, working through fatigue reduces efficiency. After a short break, the brain processes information faster and makes fewer mistakes. Tasks that felt heavy often feel manageable again. These breaks do not need to be long or intense. The goal is not exercise. The goal is movement. 2 to 5 minutes every 30 to 60 minutes is enough. Standing up, rolling the shoulders, stretching the back, or walking around the room works well. The consistency of these breaks matters more than what movement you choose. A common mistake is waiting until exhaustion sets in. By then, recovery takes longer. Regular movement breaks prevent mental energy from dropping too far. They maintain focus instead of trying to restore it later. Movement breaks are especially helpful for students, office workers, and anyone who spends long hours sitting. They reduce mental strain and improve concentration over the entire day. Over time, this habit also supports better posture and reduced physical discomfort, which further protects focus. Incorporating brief movement breaks is not about doing less work. It is about working with the brain instead of against it. Small movements create space for the mind to reset. When used consistently, they keep mental energy steady and make long work days feel lighter and more manageable. Consuming omega-3 rich foods to support neuron communication. The brain is made up of billions of cells that constantly communicate with each other. This communication is what allows you to think, remember, focus, and regulate emotions. For this system to work well, brain cells need the right structural support. Omega-3 fatty acids play a key role in this process, which is why they are so important for brain health. Neurons communicate through electrical and chemical signals. To send these signals efficiently, neurons are covered by a fatty outer layer. This layer helps messages travel quickly and accurately from one cell to another. Omega-3 fats are a major building block of this layer. When the brain gets enough omega-3s, communication between neurons becomes smoother and more efficient. When omega-3 intake is low, this communication slows down. Signals become less clear. This can show up as poor concentration, slower thinking, or difficulty remembering information. Over time, low omega-3 intake may also affect mood and emotional balance. The brain simply does not function at its best without these fats. Omega-3s also help reduce inflammation in the brain. Everyday stress, poor sleep, and unhealthy food can increase inflammation, which interferes with cognitive performance. Omega-3s act as a protective factor. They help keep the brain environment stable and supportive of learning and memory. Consuming omega-3 rich foods regularly is more effective than taking them occasionally. The brain needs a steady supply. Fatty fish such as salmon, sardines, and anchovies are well-known sources. For those who do not eat fish, plant-based options like flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts can help, though the body converts these less efficiently. Consistency matters more than quantity in a single meal. A common mistake is treating omega-3s like a short-term supplement. Eating them for a few days and then stopping does not help much. Brain structure changes slowly. Regular intake over weeks and months is what supports long-term improvement in focus and memory. Another benefit of omega-3s is their role in stress regulation. They support balanced brain signaling, which helps emotional responses feel less intense. Many people notice better mental stability when omega-3 rich foods become part of their regular diet. This habit is valuable for all age groups. Students benefit from improved learning and memory. Working adults experience clearer thinking and better focus. Older adults support long-term brain health by maintaining neuron structure. Consuming omega-3 rich foods is not about following a trend. It is about giving the brain the materials it needs to communicate efficiently. When neuron communication improves, mental performance improves naturally. Eating complex carbohydrates for stable brain energy. The brain runs primarily on glucose. Every thought, decision, and memory depends on a steady supply of energy. What many people miss is that the type of carbohydrate you eat determines how stable that energy is. Complex carbohydrates play a key role in keeping the brain energized, focused, and calm throughout the day. When you eat refined sugars or highly processed foods, energy rises quickly and then crashes. The brain feels alert for a short time, followed by fatigue, poor focus, and irritability. This cycle makes it harder to concentrate and harder to control emotions. Over time, repeated energy crashes strain the brain and reduce mental performance. Complex carbohydrates work differently. They break down slowly in the body, releasing glucose at a steady pace. This creates consistent energy for the brain instead of sharp spikes. With stable glucose levels, the brain can maintain focus, process information more efficiently, and avoid sudden drops in attention. Foods like whole grains, oats, brown rice, quinoa, sweet potatoes, legumes, and vegetables are good examples of complex carbohydrates. These foods contain fiber, which slows digestion and supports gradual energy release. This steady supply helps the brain stay active without feeling overstimulated or exhausted. Stable brain energy is especially important for tasks that require sustained attention. Studying, working, problem-solving, and decision-making all depend on consistent fuel. When the brain is properly fueled, tasks feel smoother and require less effort. You are not forcing focus, you are supporting it. Another benefit of complex carbohydrates is mood stability. Sudden changes in blood sugar can affect emotional regulation. People often feel anxious, irritable, or restless when energy drops quickly. By eating complex carbohydrates, these fluctuations reduce, making emotional responses feel more balanced and controlled. A common mistake is skipping carbohydrates entirely, or relying only on quick snacks. This often leads to mental fatigue later in the day. The brain does not function well on restriction. It functions best when fuel is steady and reliable. Timing also matters. Including complex carbohydrates earlier in the day supports focus during work or study hours. Pairing them with protein and healthy fats further stabilizes energy release. This combination keeps the brain fueled for longer periods without crashes. You do not need large portions to see benefits. Consistency matters more than quantity. Regular inclusion of complex carbohydrates trains the brain to expect steady fuel instead of short bursts. This habit is useful for everyone. Students experience better concentration during long study sessions. Working adults avoid afternoon energy drops. Parents feel more patient and mentally present. Eating complex carbohydrates is not about eating more, it is about eating smarter. When brain energy stays stable, focus improves, stress reduces, and mental clarity lasts longer throughout the day. Including high-quality protein to support neurotransmitter production. The brain communicates using chemicals called neurotransmitters. These chemicals control focus, memory, motivation, mood, and emotional balance. What many people do not realize is that neurotransmitters are built from amino acids, and amino acids come from protein. This makes protein intake a daily requirement for proper brain function, not just for muscles or physical strength. When you eat high-quality protein, your body breaks it down into amino acids. These amino acids are then used to produce neurotransmitters such as those involved in attention, learning, calmness, and alertness. If protein intake is low or inconsistent, neurotransmitter production slows down. This can lead to poor concentration, low motivation, mental fatigue, and unstable mood. This is why people often feel mentally drained when meals are skipped or poorly balanced. The brain simply does not have the raw materials it needs to communicate efficiently. Over time, this affects learning speed, memory retention, and emotional control. High-quality protein sources provide a complete and usable amino acid profile. Foods like eggs, dairy, lean meats, fish, tofu, paneer, lentils, and legumes are strong options. The goal is not to eat large amounts at once, but to include protein consistently across meals. Regular supply matters more than quantity in a single sitting. Another important benefit of protein is sustained mental energy. Protein slows digestion and helps stabilize blood sugar when eaten with carbohydrates. This prevents energy crashes that interfere with focus. Meals that include protein tend to keep the brain alert for longer periods, making them especially useful before studying or working. A common mistake is treating protein as optional or limiting it to one meal a day. This creates gaps in neurotransmitter support. The brain performs best when protein intake is spread evenly. Breakfast is especially important, as the brain needs raw materials early in the day to function optimally. Protein also supports emotional regulation. Neurotransmitters involved in calmness and stress response depend on amino acids. When protein intake improves, many people notice better emotional balance and reduced mental reactivity. This habit benefits all age groups. Students experience improved concentration and memory. Working adults maintain mental stamina throughout the day. Parents feel more emotionally steady and patient. Older adults support long-term brain health by maintaining chemical balance in the brain. Including high-quality protein is not about following a diet trend. It is about supplying the brain with essential building blocks. When neurotransmitter production is supported, thinking becomes clearer, focus improves, and mental energy feels more stable. Consistent protein intake helps the brain communicate efficiently and perform at its best every day. Eating antioxidant-rich foods to reduce brain inflammation. The brain works best in a calm and balanced environment. One of the biggest threats to that balance is inflammation. Brain inflammation does not happen suddenly. It builds slowly due to stress, poor sleep, unhealthy food, and constant mental pressure. When inflammation increases, brain performance decreases. Focus drops. Memory weakens. Thinking feels heavier than it should. Antioxidant-rich foods help protect the brain from this damage. Antioxidants work by neutralizing harmful byproducts created during normal brain activity and stress. When these byproducts build up, they irritate brain cells and interfere with communication between neurons. Antioxidants act like a cleanup system, helping the brain stay clear and functional. Inflammation in the brain often shows up as mental fog. You may feel slow, distracted, or easily overwhelmed. Emotional reactions may feel stronger than usual. These are not character issues. They are signs that the brain environment is under strain. Reducing inflammation helps restore balance. Foods rich in antioxidants include berries, dark chocolate, leafy greens, colourful vegetables, nuts, and seeds. These foods contain natural compounds that support brain cell protection and repair. Regular intake matters more than occasional use. The brain benefits from a steady supply, not short bursts. One major benefit of antioxidant-rich foods is improved memory protection. Learning and memory rely on healthy brain cells and strong connections between them. Inflammation weakens these connections. By reducing inflammation, antioxidants help preserve memory and support long-term learning. Another benefit is emotional stability. Chronic inflammation affects areas of the brain involved in mood and stress regulation. When inflammation is reduced, emotional responses feel more balanced. Many people notice they feel calmer and more mentally clear when their diet improves. A common mistake is focusing only on one superfood. No single food fixes everything. Variety is more effective. Different antioxidants support different brain processes. Eating a range of colourful plant-based foods gives broader protection. Timing also plays a role. Including antioxidant-rich foods daily helps protect the brain from ongoing stress. Pairing them with healthy fats improves absorption and effectiveness. Small changes, like adding berries to breakfast or vegetables to meals, can make a meaningful difference over time. This habit is valuable for all ages. Students benefit from clearer thinking and better focus. Working adults experience reduced mental fatigue. Older adults support long-term brain health by protecting brain cells from damage. Eating antioxidant-rich foods is not about restriction, it is about protection. When brain inflammation is reduced, thinking becomes smoother, focus lasts longer, and mental energy feels more stable. Supporting the brain through nutrition helps it function the way it was meant to: calm, clear, and efficient. Maintaining proper hydration to prevent brain fog. Brain fog is one of the most common and misunderstood problems people experience. You feel slow, thinking takes effort. Concentration slips easily, words feel just out of reach. Many people blame stress or lack of sleep, but dehydration is often a hidden cause. The brain is made largely of water. Even a small drop in hydration affects how brain cells function. When the body lacks enough fluids, blood flow to the brain becomes less efficient. Oxygen and nutrients are delivered more slowly. Waste products are cleared less effectively. The result is mental dullness. What makes dehydration tricky is that it does not always feel dramatic. You do not need to feel thirsty to be dehydrated. Mild dehydration can exist quietly while still affecting focus, memory, and mood. This is why people often feel mentally tired, even early in the day. Proper hydration helps the brain maintain electrical balance between cells. Neurons rely on this balance to send signals smoothly. When hydration drops, communication between brain cells becomes less efficient. Thoughts feel scattered. Focus breaks easily. Simple tasks feel harder than usual. Hydration also plays a role in emotional regulation. Dehydration increases stress responses in the brain. This can make you feel irritable, anxious, or restless without a clear reason. Restoring fluid levels often improves mood along with clarity. A common mistake is relying only on thirst as a signal. By the time you feel thirsty, the brain is already affected. Another mistake is drinking large amounts of water all at once. This does not hydrate the brain efficiently. The brain responds better to steady intake throughout the day. Water is the primary requirement, but hydration is not limited to plain water alone. Foods with high water content also contribute. Fruits, vegetables, and soups support hydration naturally. However, sugary drinks and excessive caffeine can worsen dehydration by increasing fluid loss. Morning hydration is especially important. After hours of sleep, the brain starts the day slightly dehydrated. Drinking water soon after waking helps restore circulation and mental alertness. Many people notice clearer thinking within minutes. Maintaining proper hydration also supports learning and memory. Studies consistently show that hydrated brains process information faster and retain it better. This matters for students, professionals, and anyone doing mentally demanding work. This habit is simple but powerful. Keep water accessible. Drink regularly, not reactively. Pay attention to mental clarity as a signal, not just thirst. Maintaining proper hydration is not about forcing large amounts of water. It is about consistency. When the brain stays hydrated, focus improves, thinking sharpens, and brain fog lifts naturally. Small, steady habits protect mental clarity throughout the day. Using caffeine deliberately to boost alertness without crashes. Caffeine is one of the most commonly used substances for mental alertness. Many people rely on it to start the day or push through fatigue. Used correctly, caffeine can improve focus, reaction time, and mental clarity. Used poorly, it can create energy crashes, anxiety, and disrupted sleep. The difference lies in how deliberately it is used. Caffeine works by blocking signals in the brain that promote sleepiness. This makes you feel more awake and alert. However, caffeine does not create energy. It only masks fatigue temporarily. When it wears off, the underlying tiredness returns, often more strongly. This is why people experience crashes after excessive or poorly timed caffeine intake. One of the most common mistakes is using caffeine immediately after waking. In the morning, the brain naturally reduces sleep pressure on its own. Adding caffeine too early can interfere with this process and increase dependence later in the day. Delaying caffeine intake by about 60 to 90 minutes after waking often leads to smoother energy levels. Another issue is quantity. More caffeine does not mean better focus. High doses overstimulate the nervous system. This can cause restlessness, jitteriness, and difficulty concentrating. The brain becomes alert but scattered. Moderate amounts are far more effective for sustained mental performance. Timing matters just as much as amount. Consuming caffeine too late in the day interferes with sleep quality, even if you fall asleep easily. Poor sleep then leads to more fatigue the next day, creating a cycle of dependence. To protect sleep, caffeine intake should stop at least 6 to 8 hours before bedtime. Caffeine also works best when paired with good habits. Hydration, proper meals, and regular sleep reduce the need for frequent caffeine use. When the brain is already supported, caffeine acts as a small enhancer instead of a crutch. A deliberate approach means using caffeine for specific purposes. Before focused work. During long study sessions. At times when alertness is genuinely needed. It also means avoiding automatic use out of habit or boredom. Alternating caffeine with movement, light exposure, or brief breaks can reduce reliance. These strategies refresh mental energy without overstimulation. Over time, this keeps the brain responsive to smaller amounts of caffeine. This habit benefits students, professionals, and anyone doing mentally demanding work. When caffeine is used intentionally, focus improves without emotional side effects. Energy feels smoother, crashes reduce, sleep quality stays protected. Using caffeine deliberately is not about quitting it. It is about respecting how it affects the brain. When timing and amount are controlled, caffeine becomes a useful tool rather than a source of instability. Proper use supports alertness while preserving long-term brain health and recovery. Reducing ultra-processed food intake to protect cognitive performance. Ultra-processed foods are everywhere. They are convenient, affordable, and designed to taste good. But while they may save time, they often cost the brain more than people realize. Regular consumption of ultra-processed foods can quietly reduce cognitive performance, affecting focus, memory, and mental clarity over time. Ultra-processed foods are products that have been heavily modified from their original form. They usually contain refined sugars, unhealthy fats, artificial additives, and very little natural nutrition. These ingredients are easy for the body to consume, but difficult for the brain to work with. Instead of providing steady fuel, they create instability. One major issue is blood sugar fluctuation. Ultra-processed foods often cause rapid spikes in blood sugar, followed by sudden drops. The brain depends on stable energy. When energy rises and falls quickly, focus becomes inconsistent. You may feel alert briefly, then mentally exhausted soon after. Repeated cycles like this strain the brain and reduce attention span. Another concern is inflammation. Diets high in ultra-processed foods increase inflammation in the body, including the brain. Inflammation interferes with communication between brain cells. Over time, this can weaken memory, slow thinking, and make learning feel harder. Emotional regulation may also suffer, leading to irritability or low motivation. Ultra-processed foods also lack essential nutrients the brain needs. Vitamins, minerals, healthy fats, and antioxidants are often missing or present in very small amounts. Without these nutrients, the brain cannot maintain strong connections between neurons. Cognitive performance gradually declines, even if calorie intake is high. Many people use ultra-processed foods during busy or stressful periods. Ironically, these are the times when the brain needs the most support. Relying on packaged snacks, sugary drinks, or fast food during long work or study hours often leads to faster mental fatigue. Reducing ultra-processed food intake does not mean perfection. It means making small, consistent improvements. Replacing one processed snack with whole foods makes a difference. Choosing meals with simple ingredients supports the brain better than relying on convenience products. Whole foods provide slower energy release, better nutrient density, and less inflammation. This creates a more stable environment for the brain. Focus lasts longer. Mental energy feels smoother. Emotional responses become more balanced. This habit benefits everyone. Students improve concentration. Working adults experience fewer energy crashes. Parents feel more mentally present. Over time, reducing ultra-processed foods supports long-term brain health without complex rules. Protecting cognitive performance is not about restriction. It is about choosing foods that support how the brain actually works. When ultra-processed foods are reduced, the brain functions more efficiently, clearly, and consistently. Designing the environment to make healthy habits automatic. Most people believe habits succeed or fail because of motivation. In reality, the environment plays a much bigger role. The brain responds automatically to what is around it. When the environment supports good habits, the brain follows without resistance. When the environment works against you, even strong intentions struggle to survive. Your brain is constantly looking for the easiest option. It conserves energy whenever possible. This means it is more likely to follow habits that require the least effort in the moment. Environment design works by making healthy choices easier and unhealthy choices harder, without relying on willpower. Think about common daily struggles. You plan to drink more water, but the bottle is in another room. You want to study, but your phone is always within reach. You want to sleep on time, but screens are everywhere in the bedroom. In each case, the environment pushes the brain toward the easier option, not the better one. Designing the environment means removing friction from good habits. If you want to hydrate better, keep water visible and accessible. If you want to read more, place a book where you usually scroll. If you want to focus, clear your workspace before starting. These small changes reduce decision-making and allow habits to happen automatically. The same principle applies to breaking bad habits. If unhealthy snacks are within reach, the brain will choose them when tired. If notifications are always on, focus will break repeatedly. By placing obstacles in the way of these habits, you reduce how often they occur. This could mean keeping snacks out of sight, placing the phone outside the room, or turning off unnecessary alerts. One of the most powerful changes is designing the sleep environment. Dimming lights, reducing noise, and keeping screens out of the bedroom signal the brain that rest is expected. Over time, the brain responds faster and sleep becomes easier without effort. Environment design also reduces mental fatigue. When habits are automatic, the brain does not waste energy on constant decisions. This preserves focus and improves consistency. You are not forcing yourself to do the right thing. You are setting things up so the right thing happens naturally. Many people try to change everything at once. That often fails. Environment design works best when done gradually. Change one small thing, move one object, remove one distraction. Let the brain adapt. This habit is powerful because it works quietly. Students study more consistently. Working adults focus longer. Parents maintain routines with less stress. Over time, the environment becomes a silent support system. Designing the environment is not about control. It is about alignment. When your surroundings support your goals, your brain stops fighting change. Healthy habits become automatic because the environment makes them the easiest choice available. Using habit stacking to attach new brain-supporting behaviors. Building new habits is hard because the brain resists change. It prefers what is familiar and automatic. This is where habit stacking becomes useful. Habit stacking works by attaching a new behavior to something you already do every day. Instead of creating a habit from scratch, you build it onto an existing routine. This makes the change feel natural instead of forced. Your brain already runs much of your day on autopilot. Brushing your teeth, drinking morning tea, checking your phone, or sitting down to work all happen with little thought. Habit stacking uses these existing behaviors as anchors. When the anchor happens, the new habit follows automatically. For example, instead of saying I will start meditating every day, you say after I brush my teeth at night, I will sit quietly for 2 minutes. The brushing already happens. The new habit simply rides along. This reduces mental resistance and decision fatigue. The key to habit stacking is choosing the right anchor. The anchor should be something you do consistently, at the same time, and without effort. Morning routines, meals, and bedtime habits work especially well. The more stable the anchor, the stronger the new habit becomes. Another important rule is keeping the new behavior small. The brain accepts small changes more easily than big ones. If the new habit feels heavy, it will be skipped. Instead of adding a long workout, add a short stretch. Instead of a long journal session, write one sentence. Once the habit becomes automatic, it can grow naturally. Habit stacking works well for brain-supporting behaviors. Drinking water after waking up. Taking a short walk after lunch. Reviewing notes before shutting down work. Practicing slow breathing before sleep. These small actions support focus, memory, and emotional balance when done consistently. A common mistake is stacking too many habits at once. This overwhelms the brain and breaks the system. One new habit per anchor is enough. Let it stabilize before adding another. The goal is reliability, not speed. Over time, stacked habits create strong routines. The brain begins to expect them. What once required effort becomes automatic. This frees mental energy for more important tasks and reduces stress around self-improvement. Habit stacking is especially useful for busy people. Students can add review habits without extra study time. Working adults can support focus without changing schedules. Parents can build routines without adding pressure. This method works because it respects how the brain operates. It does not fight existing patterns. It uses them. By attaching new brain-supporting behaviors to habits that already exist, change becomes easier, smoother, and far more sustainable. Breaking goals into small, repeatable actions to reduce mental resistance. Big goals often fail not because they are unrealistic, but because they feel overwhelming. When the brain sees a large goal, it automatically calculates effort, time, and uncertainty. This triggers resistance. The task feels heavy before you even begin. Breaking goals into small, repeatable actions removes this resistance and makes progress feel manageable. The brain prefers actions that feel safe and familiar. Large goals signal risk and high energy use. Small actions feel doable. They lower the entry barrier. When the brain believes a task is easy to start, it is far more likely to begin. This is why people procrastinate less when goals are simplified. For example, saying I will study for 3 hours creates pressure. Saying I will study for 10 minutes creates movement. Once the brain starts, continuing becomes easier. Action reduces resistance more effectively than motivation ever will. Small, repeatable actions also create momentum. Each completed action gives the brain a sense of progress. This releases positive feedback signals that encourage repetition. Over time, these small actions compound into meaningful results without mental strain. Another benefit is consistency. Large goals are often abandoned after a few missed days. Small actions are easier to return to. Missing one day does not feel like failure. This protects confidence and keeps habits alive long term. The key is clarity. Each action should be specific and controllable. Write 1 paragraph, read 2 pages, walk for 5 minutes. Vague goals confuse the brain. Clear actions guide it. Repeatability matters more than intensity. An action done daily, even briefly, builds a strong neural pathway. The brain learns to expect it. Over time, what once felt like effort becomes routine. A common mistake is trying to make progress feel impressive. The brain does not care about impressive, it cares about manageable. When actions are small, the brain stays calm and cooperative. This approach works especially well for brain-supporting habits. Learning, exercise, journaling, and focus practices all benefit from small daily actions. Students retain information better. Working adults avoid burnout. Parents maintain routines with less stress. Breaking goals into small, repeatable actions is not about lowering standards. It is about working with how the brain functions. Progress is not built through pressure. It is built through consistency. When actions feel easy to start, the brain stops resisting and starts moving forward naturally. Practicing single-task focus to improve attention and retention. The brain is not built to handle many tasks at the same time. It may feel productive to multitask, but what actually happens is constant switching. Each switch costs mental energy. Over time, this weakens attention and makes it harder to retain information. Practicing single-task focus is one of the most effective ways to strengthen how the brain concentrates and remembers. When you focus on one task at a time, the brain can fully engage with the information in front of it. Attention becomes deeper instead of scattered. This depth is what allows memories to form properly. When attention is divided, information stays shallow and is easily forgotten. This is why reading while checking messages often leads to poor recall. Single-task focus reduces mental noise. Multitasking keeps the brain in a state of alertness, constantly monitoring for the next interruption. This drains energy quickly. By focusing on one task, the brain enters a calmer and more efficient mode. Thinking becomes clearer. Decision-making improves. Work feels less exhausting. Retention improves because the brain has enough space to process information fully. Learning is not just about exposure, it is about engagement. When the brain is focused, it connects new information to existing knowledge. These connections are what make memory stronger and more reliable. A common mistake is believing that multitasking saves time. In reality, it slows progress. Tasks take longer, mistakes increase. Mental fatigue builds faster. Single-task focus may feel slower at first, but it leads to better outcomes in less time overall. Practicing this habit starts with removing distractions. Notifications, open tabs, and background noise pull attention away even if you try to ignore them. Creating a clear work or study space helps the brain commit fully to one task. When distractions are reduced, focus becomes easier without extra effort. Time boundaries also support single task focus. Setting a specific period to work on one task helps the brain settle in. During this time, you give yourself permission to ignore everything else. This reduces internal conflict and improves concentration. This habit is especially powerful for learning. Students remember more with less repetition. Working adults complete tasks with higher quality. Parents feel more present during daily activities. Over time, the brain adapts and focus becomes more natural. Practicing single-task focus is not about doing less, it is about doing things properly. When attention is protected, retention improves. Mental energy lasts longer. The brain performs better because it is no longer being pulled in multiple directions at once. Using timed deep focus sessions to train sustained concentration. Sustained concentration is not something most people are naturally good at anymore. Constant notifications, fast content, and frequent interruptions have trained the brain to work in short bursts. As a result, staying focused for long periods feels difficult and tiring. Timed deep focus sessions help retrain the brain to concentrate for longer without feeling overwhelmed. The idea is simple. Instead of trying to focus indefinitely, you work within a clear time boundary. The brain responds well to limits. When it knows there is a defined start and end point, resistance drops. Focus feels safer and more manageable. This is why timed sessions are more effective than open-ended work. During a deep focus session, you commit to one task only. No multitasking, no switching, no checking messages. The brain gets a rare chance to settle into a single stream of attention. At first, this may feel uncomfortable. The urge to switch tasks or check the phone often appears. This is normal. It is a sign that the brain is relearning how to stay with one thing. Timed sessions also reduce mental fatigue. When focus has no clear end, the brain stays tense. With a timer, the brain can relax into the work, knowing a break is coming. This makes concentration feel less draining and more controlled. A common and effective structure is working for 25 to 50 minutes, followed by a short break. The exact duration matters less than consistency. Shorter sessions work well for beginners. Longer sessions can be added gradually as concentration improves. The goal is not to push limits, but to train endurance slowly. Breaks are an essential part of this habit. They allow the brain to reset before the next session. Standing up, stretching, or walking briefly helps restore blood flow and mental energy. This prevents burnout and keeps focus strong across multiple sessions. Another benefit of timed deep focus sessions is improved work quality. When attention is uninterrupted, the brain processes information more deeply. Fewer mistakes occur, understanding improves. Tasks that once felt complex become clearer because the brain is fully engaged. This habit is especially useful for studying, creative work, and problem solving. Students retain information better. Working adults complete tasks faster with higher accuracy. Over time, the brain adapts. Sustained focus becomes easier and more natural. Using timed deep focus sessions is not about forcing productivity. It is about creating the right conditions for concentration. Clear time boundaries, protected attention, and regular breaks teach the brain how to focus again. With practice, sustained concentration stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a skill you can rely on. Limiting phone and notification exposure to protect attention span. Phones are one of the biggest threats to attention today, not because of how much time we use them, but because of how often they interrupt us. Every notification, vibration, or screen light pulls the brain out of whatever it is doing. Over time, this trains the brain to expect constant interruption. Attention span shortens, focus weakens, and deep thinking becomes harder. Each time you check your phone, even briefly, the brain has to switch context. This switching is not free, it costs mental energy. When this happens repeatedly throughout the day, the brain becomes fatigued faster. Tasks that require concentration start to feel difficult, even if they are simple. This is not a lack of ability. It is a result of constant disruption. Notifications are especially damaging because they create anticipation. Even when you do not check your phone, part of your attention stays on alert, waiting for the next sound or vibration. The brain never fully settles into focus. This divided attention reduces retention and increases mental stress. Over time, frequent phone checking trains the brain to crave stimulation. Silence starts to feel uncomfortable. Long tasks feel boring. The brain looks for quick rewards instead of sustained effort. This directly affects learning, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. Limiting phone and notification exposure protects attention by giving the brain uninterrupted space. When interruptions reduce, the brain relearns how to stay with one task. Focus deepens naturally. Mental energy lasts longer. Work feels less exhausting. This does not require removing the phone completely. It requires setting clear boundaries. Turning off non-essential notifications is a strong first step. Many alerts do not need immediate attention. Removing them reduces unnecessary mental triggers. Another effective habit is keeping the phone physically out of reach during focus periods. When the phone is not visible, the urge to check it decreases. The brain settles faster. Even placing the phone face down can reduce distraction. Scheduling specific times to check messages also helps. When the brain knows there is a planned time for phone use, it stops constantly scanning for updates. This reduces anxiety and improves concentration during work or study periods. This habit is especially important for students and professionals. Learning requires sustained attention. Creative thinking needs mental space. Constant phone interruptions break both. Parents also benefit by being more present and emotionally balanced. Limiting phone and notification exposure is not about control or restriction. It is about protecting a limited resource. Attention is one of the brain's most valuable assets. When it is guarded, thinking becomes clearer, memory improves, and focus feels easier to maintain. Over time, the brain regains its natural ability to concentrate without constant stimulation, avoiding instant gratification behaviours that weaken self-control. Instant gratification feels good in the moment, but it quietly weakens the brain over time. These behaviours give quick pleasure with very little effort. Scrolling endlessly, eating junk food out of boredom, constantly switching tasks, reaching for the phone whenever there is a pause. The brain learns to chase these quick rewards and slowly loses the ability to tolerate effort or delay. Self-control is not about forcing discipline. It is a brain skill. Like any skill, it becomes stronger or weaker based on how it is used. When the brain repeatedly chooses instant rewards, it trains itself to avoid discomfort. Over time, even small challenges start to feel heavy. Focus drops faster. Motivation becomes fragile. Long-term goals feel distant and unappealing. The problem is not pleasure itself. The problem is constant, unearned pleasure. The brain's reward system is designed to reinforce useful behaviours. When rewards come too easily and too often, the system becomes overstimulated. This reduces satisfaction from normal effort-based activities like studying, working, or learning new skills. Instant gratification also fragments attention. Quick rewards train the brain to expect frequent stimulation. When stimulation is missing, the brain feels restless. This makes it harder to stay with one task. Retention suffers. Emotional regulation becomes harder because the brain wants relief immediately. Avoiding instant gratification behaviours does not mean removing all enjoyment. It means creating space between urge and action. That pause is where self-control grows. When you delay a quick reward, even briefly, the brain learns that it can tolerate discomfort. This strengthens decision-making circuits and improves focus. Small changes are enough. Do not aim to remove everything at once. Start by noticing triggers. Boredom. Stress. Fatigue. Awareness alone weakens automatic behaviour. Then add friction. Keep the phone out of reach. Replace mindless scrolling with a short walk. Delay snacks by 10 minutes. These pauses retrain the brain. Another helpful strategy is replacing low-effort rewards with effort-based ones. Completing a task before checking messages. Finishing a study block before entertainment. The brain begins to associate effort with reward again. Over time, motivation stabilizes. This habit is especially important for students and professionals. Learning and progress require sustained effort. When instant gratification dominates, long-term thinking suffers. Parents also benefit by modelling patience and emotional regulation. Avoiding instant gratification behaviours is not about restriction, it is about protection. You are protecting your attention, motivation, and ability to choose what matters. As self-control strengthens, focus improves. Goals feel more reachable. The brain becomes calmer and more resilient. Strong self-control is built quietly, one small delay at a time. Journaling daily to clear mental clutter and emotional overload. The brain carries more than it should most days. Thoughts, worries, unfinished tasks, emotions and conversations keep looping in the background. When this mental clutter builds up, focus drops and emotional reactions become stronger. Journaling is one of the simplest ways to clear this overload and give the brain space to breathe. When thoughts stay only in your head, they feel bigger and more chaotic. The brain keeps revisiting them because it is trying to solve or remember everything at once. Writing moves those thoughts out of the mind and onto paper. This immediately reduces pressure. The brain no longer has to hold everything at the same time. Journaling is not about writing well or sounding intelligent. It is about honesty. Short sentences are enough. Messy thoughts are allowed. The goal is not structure. The goal is release. When you write freely, the brain shifts from emotional processing to logical processing. This alone can calm strong emotions. Daily journaling also improves focus. Mental clutter steals attention even when you are working or studying. Unwritten thoughts interrupt concentration. Once they are written down, the brain feels safer letting them go. This makes it easier to stay present with the task in front of you. Another benefit is emotional regulation. Writing helps you notice patterns. What triggers stress? What drains energy? What brings relief? This awareness makes emotions feel less overwhelming. You are no longer reacting blindly. You begin responding with understanding. Journaling does not need to take long. 5 minutes is enough. Consistency matters more than length. Writing a little every day prevents emotional build-up. It works like regular maintenance for the mind. A helpful approach is to separate journaling into 2 simple parts. First, write what feels heavy, what bothered you, what kept returning to your mind. Do not filter it. Then write 1 or 2 lines about what helped, what you learned, or what you want to do next. This shifts the brain from overload to clarity. Many people avoid journaling because they think it will make emotions stronger. In reality, suppressed emotions grow louder. Written emotions soften. Once named, they lose intensity. This habit is especially useful for students, professionals, and parents. Students process stress better. Working adults think more clearly. Parents release emotional tension instead of carrying it forward. Journaling is not therapy, it is self-organization. It gives the brain a safe place to unload thoughts instead of carrying them all day. When mental clutter reduces, focus improves. Emotional balance returns. The mind feels lighter, clearer, and more in control. A few honest lines each day can change how the brain handles pressure. Practicing positive self-talk to strengthen cognitive confidence. The way you speak to yourself has a direct impact on how your brain performs. Self-talk is not just background noise, it shapes confidence, focus, and decision-making every day. When self-talk is consistently negative, the brain becomes cautious, tense, and easily overwhelmed. When it is supportive and realistic, the brain works with more clarity and confidence. Cognitive confidence is the belief that you can handle what is in front of you. It does not mean blind optimism or pretending everything is easy. It means trusting your ability to think, learn, and respond. Positive self-talk strengthens this trust. It gives the brain permission to engage instead of freeze. Negative self-talk often sounds automatic. I'm not good at this. I always mess up. This is too hard. These statements feel harmless, but the brain takes them seriously. Repeated often enough, they become expectations. When the brain expects failure, it reduces effort and attention as a form of protection. This creates a self-fulfilling cycle. Positive self-talk interrupts that cycle. It replaces absolute and critical statements with supportive ones. Instead of "I can't do this," you say, "This is challenging, but I can figure it out." This small shift changes how the brain responds. Stress lowers. Focus improves. Problem-solving becomes easier. Positive self-talk does not ignore difficulty. It acknowledges effort. It emphasizes process over outcome. Statements like "I'm improving," "I can learn this," or "I've handled similar situations before" help the brain stay engaged under pressure. This is especially important during learning, exams, presentations, or difficult conversations. One common mistake is waiting to feel confident before changing self-talk. Confidence comes after supportive thinking, not before. The brain needs encouragement to stay active. Harsh inner dialogue shuts it down. Practicing positive self-talk works best when it is consistent and specific. General affirmations feel fake to the brain. Grounded statements feel believable. Tie self-talk to actions and effort, not perfection. Another helpful habit is noticing when negative self-talk appears. Awareness alone reduces its impact. Once noticed, gently replace it. You do not need to argue with it, just offer an alternative. This habit is powerful for students who doubt their abilities, professionals under pressure, and parents managing daily stress. Over time, the brain becomes less reactive and more confident. Tasks feel less threatening. Mistakes feel manageable instead of overwhelming. Positive self-talk is not about boosting ego. It is about creating a mental environment where the brain feels safe to perform. When self-talk supports effort and learning, cognitive confidence grows naturally. With confidence, focus improves. Decisions feel clearer. The brain becomes more resilient and capable under pressure. Pausing before reacting to strengthen emotional regulation. Emotional reactions often happen faster than we can think. Someone says something upsetting. A message triggers irritation. A situation feels unfair. Before we realize it, the response is already out. This is not a personality flaw. It is how the brain is wired. Pausing before reacting is a simple habit that helps regain control and strengthens emotional regulation over time. The brain has two main response systems. One is fast and emotional. The other is slower and more thoughtful. When something triggers you, the fast system takes over. It prepares the body to react immediately. Heart rate rises. Muscles tense. Thoughts narrow. In this state, reactions are impulsive and often unhelpful. A pause interrupts this automatic process. Even a short pause of a few seconds gives the brain time to shift control from emotion to reasoning. During this pause, stress signals begin to settle. The thinking part of the brain comes back online. This creates space to choose a response instead of acting on impulse. Pausing does not mean suppressing emotions. Suppression pushes feelings down and often makes them stronger later. Pausing means acknowledging what you feel without acting on it immediately. You notice the emotion, but you do not let it decide your behaviour. This habit improves emotional regulation because it trains the brain to tolerate discomfort. Strong emotions often demand instant release. When you pause, the brain learns that discomfort is temporary and manageable. Over time, emotional intensity reduces and reactions become less extreme. A simple way to practice pausing is to focus on the body. Take one slow breath before responding. Feel your feet on the ground. Relax your shoulders. These small actions signal safety to the nervous system and reduce emotional urgency. Another helpful strategy is using a neutral phrase internally. Saying something like "pause" or "not now" helps break the automatic reaction. This gives the brain a clear cue to slow down. Pausing is especially important in conversations. Many conflicts escalate because people react while emotionally charged. A pause allows you to listen better and respond with clarity. This improves communication and reduces regret later. This habit benefits all areas of life. Students manage exam stress better. Working adults handle pressure and feedback more calmly. Parents respond with patience instead of frustration. Relationships become more stable because reactions are thoughtful instead of explosive. Pausing before reacting is a small habit with a big impact. It does not change what you feel. It changes what you do with those feelings. With practice, emotional regulation strengthens. The brain becomes calmer under stress. Decisions improve. Over time, responses reflect intention instead of impulse. Using slow, controlled breathing to calm the nervous system. Breathing is one of the few body functions that happens automatically, but can also be controlled. This makes it a powerful tool for calming the nervous system and supporting brain health. Many people underestimate breathing because it feels too simple. In reality, slow and controlled breathing has a direct effect on how the brain handles stress, focus, and emotional balance. When you feel stressed or overwhelmed, your breathing usually becomes fast and shallow. This signals danger to the brain. The nervous system shifts into alert mode. Heart rate increases. Muscles tense. Thinking becomes narrow and reactive. In this state, focus drops and emotional regulation becomes difficult. Slow breathing reverses this process. Slow, controlled breathing sends a clear signal of safety to the brain. It activates the calming branch of the nervous system. As breathing slows, heart rate decreases. Muscle tension reduces. Stress hormones begin to drop. This creates the conditions needed for clear thinking and emotional stability. The brain responds quickly to breathing changes. You do not need long sessions to see benefits. Even 1 to 2 minutes of slow breathing can reduce mental noise and improve clarity. This is why breathing techniques are effective during moments of anxiety, frustration, or mental fatigue. A simple approach is to focus on extending the exhale. For example, inhale slowly through the nose, then exhale slightly longer than the inhale. This pattern naturally calms the nervous system. The exact count is less important than the rhythm. Smooth, steady breathing is the goal. Controlled breathing also improves focus. When the nervous system is calm, the brain can allocate more resources to attention and memory. Tasks feel less overwhelming. Thinking becomes more organized. This is especially useful before studying, working, or making decisions. Another benefit is emotional regulation. Strong emotions often come with physical sensations, tight chest, shallow breathing, restlessness. By slowing the breath, you influence the body first. The brain follows. Emotional intensity reduces without suppressing feelings. Many people wait until stress becomes overwhelming before using breathing techniques. Practicing slow breathing regularly makes it more effective. When the brain is familiar with this pattern, it responds faster during stressful moments. Breathing becomes a reliable reset tool. This habit is easy to integrate into daily life. Slow breathing before sleep improves sleep quality. Breathing breaks during work reduce mental fatigue. Breathing before difficult conversations improves communication and control. Students use it to manage exam pressure. Working adults use it to handle deadlines and feedback. Parents use it to stay patient during stressful moments. The benefits are universal because the nervous system responds the same way in everyone. Using slow, controlled breathing is not about controlling emotions. It is about creating calm at the physical level so the brain can function properly. When the nervous system settles, focus improves, reactions soften, and the mind feels more balanced. A few intentional breaths can change how the brain experiences an entire moment. Challenging negative thoughts to build mental resilience. Negative thoughts are part of being human. They appear automatically, especially under stress, pressure, or uncertainty. The problem is not that these thoughts exist. The problem is believing them without question. Challenging negative thoughts is a habit that strengthens mental resilience and helps the brain respond more effectively to difficulty. The brain is designed to look for threats. This helped humans survive, but in daily life it often shows up as self-doubt, worry, or pessimism. Thoughts like "I'm not good enough," "this will go badly," or "I always mess things up" feel convincing because they arrive quickly and emotionally. The brain treats them as facts, even when they are not. When negative thoughts go unchallenged, they shape behavior. The brain reduces effort to avoid disappointment. Focus weakens. Motivation drops. Over time, confidence erodes. This creates a cycle where negative thoughts lead to poorer performance, which then seems to confirm the original belief. Challenging negative thoughts breaks this cycle. It does not mean forcing positive thinking or pretending problems do not exist. It means questioning the accuracy and usefulness of a thought before accepting it. This activates the thinking part of the brain and reduces emotional reactivity. A simple way to challenge a thought is to ask basic questions. Is this thought fully true? Is it based on facts or feelings? Is there another explanation? What would I say to someone else in this situation? These questions create distance between you and the thought. The brain shifts from automatic reaction to evaluation. Another effective approach is replacing absolute language. Words like always, never, and everyone exaggerate problems. Reframing them into more realistic statements reduces emotional weight. "I always fail" becomes "I struggled this time." The situation feels more manageable, and the brain stays engaged. This habit builds resilience by teaching the brain that thoughts are signals, not commands. You learn that you can experience doubt without obeying it. Over time, negative thoughts lose their power. They still appear, but they no longer control decisions. Challenging negative thoughts also improves focus. When the brain is not busy fighting itself, attention becomes available for the task at hand. Learning improves. Problem-solving becomes clearer. Emotional recovery becomes faster. A common mistake is trying to eliminate negative thoughts entirely. That is unrealistic. The goal is not elimination. The goal is response. Each time you challenge a thought, you strengthen mental flexibility. This habit is especially helpful for students facing exams, professionals under pressure, and parents handling daily stress. Resilience does not mean feeling strong all the time. It means recovering quickly and continuing despite doubt. Challenging negative thoughts trains the brain to stay steady under pressure. With practice, confidence grows, focus improves, and setbacks feel less overwhelming. Mental resilience is built one thought at a time. Practicing mindfulness during daily activities to train awareness. Most people think mindfulness means sitting still with eyes closed. In reality, mindfulness is much simpler and far more practical. It is the habit of paying full attention to what you are doing while you are doing it. Practicing mindfulness during daily activities trains awareness and helps the brain stay present instead of constantly drifting. The brain spends a lot of time on autopilot. You eat while scrolling. You walk while worrying. You listen while planning your reply. This constant mental jumping reduces awareness and drains energy. Over time, it weakens focus and increases stress. Mindfulness reverses this pattern by bringing attention back to the present moment. When you practice mindfulness, you are not trying to stop thoughts. You are noticing what is happening right now. The sensation of walking. The taste of food. The feeling of water while washing hands. This simple act anchors the brain. It reduces mental noise and improves clarity. Daily activities are the best place to practice because they already happen. You do not need extra time. You just change how you show up. When eating, eat. Notice texture, temperature, and flavour. When walking, notice your steps and breathing. When doing routine tasks, feel the movements instead of rushing through them mentally. This trains awareness because the brain learns to stay with one experience at a time. Attention becomes steadier. Distraction reduces naturally. Over time, this improves focus during work, study, and conversations. You are not forcing concentration. You are practicing it gently throughout the day. Mindfulness also improves emotional regulation. When you are aware of your body and thoughts, emotions are noticed earlier. You catch tension before it builds. You notice irritation before it turns into reaction. This gives you more control without suppression. Another benefit is reduced stress. Much stress comes from living in the past or worrying about the future. Mindfulness brings the brain back to now, where most things are actually manageable. This shift calms the nervous system and reduces mental overload. A common mistake is trying to be mindful all the time. That creates pressure. Mindfulness works best in small moments. One mindful meal, one mindful walk, one mindful pause during the day. These moments add up. This habit is especially helpful for people who feel mentally scattered. Students improve attention. Working adults reduce burnout. Parents feel more present and patient. Over time, the brain becomes less reactive and more grounded. Practicing mindfulness during daily activities is not about perfection. it is about awareness. Each moment of presence strengthens the brain's ability to focus and regulate emotions. With practice, the mind feels clearer, calmer, and more connected to what is actually happening right now. Meditating regularly to improve emotional balance and clarity. Meditation is often misunderstood. Many people think it requires long sessions, complete silence, or a perfectly calm mind. Because of this, they never start. In reality, meditation is simply a way to train the brain to observe instead of react. When practiced regularly, it improves emotional balance and mental clarity in a very practical way. Throughout the day, the brain is constantly responding to thoughts, emotions, and external demands. This keeps the nervous system slightly tense, even when nothing urgent is happening. Over time, this constant activation leads to mental fatigue, emotional swings, and poor focus. Meditation gives the brain a break from this pattern. When you meditate, you are not trying to stop thoughts. Thoughts will come, and that is normal. The practice is about noticing them without getting pulled in. Each time you notice a thought and gently return your attention to the breath or body, you strengthen the brain's ability to pause. That pause is what creates emotional balance. Regular meditation helps reduce emotional reactivity. Instead of immediately reacting to stress, irritation, or worry, the brain learns to observe first. Emotions still arise, but they pass more quickly. This makes it easier to stay calm during pressure, conversations, or unexpected situations. Clarity improves because the mind becomes less crowded. Many people describe their thinking as noisy or chaotic. Meditation does not remove problems, but it creates space between thoughts. With fewer thoughts competing for attention, decision-making becomes clearer and focus improves. Meditation also supports concentration. By repeatedly returning attention to a single anchor, such as the breath, the brain practices staying with one thing. This carries over into daily life. Tasks feel less scattered, attention lasts longer, mental energy feels more stable. The key to meditation is consistency, not duration. Even 2 to 5 minutes a day is enough to create change. Short daily sessions train the brain better than long sessions done occasionally. The brain responds to repetition. A simple way to start is to sit comfortably and focus on your breathing. When the mind wanders, notice it and return to the breath. No judgment, no correction. Just return. This process is the training. Meditation is especially helpful for students under pressure, professionals managing stress, and parents handling emotional demands. Over time, emotional balance improves. Reactions soften. Clarity increases. Meditating regularly is not about becoming calm all the time. It is about recovering faster and thinking more clearly. With practice, the brain learns that it does not have to react to every thought or feeling. That awareness creates stability, clarity, and a quieter mind in everyday life. Visualizing goals daily to align thoughts with actions. Visualization is often talked about as a motivational tool, but its real value is much deeper. When used correctly, visualization helps the brain align thoughts, decisions, and actions toward a clear direction. It is not about daydreaming or wishing. It is about training the brain to recognize and move toward specific outcomes. The brain responds strongly to mental images. When you visualize something clearly and regularly, the brain begins to treat it as important. This influences attention, behavior, and decision-making throughout the day. You start noticing opportunities that match your goals and ignoring distractions that do not. This happens quietly, without forcing motivation. Many people struggle with goals because they feel distant or abstract. Visualization makes goals feel real and present. When the brain can see an outcome, it becomes easier to act in ways that support it. Actions begin to feel more purposeful instead of random. Effective visualization focuses on process, not just results. Instead of only imagining success, Visualize yourself taking the steps that lead there. Picture yourself studying with focus, completing tasks calmly, handling challenges without panic. This trains the brain to associate effort with progress. Daily visualization also strengthens emotional resilience. When challenges arise, the brain is less likely to freeze or avoid them. It recognizes them as part of the path. This reduces fear and increases confidence. You are not surprised by effort because you have already mentally rehearsed it. Visualization works best when it is brief and consistent. 1 to 2 minutes is enough. The goal is not intensity, it is repetition. The brain learns through repeated exposure, not long sessions. A simple way to practice is to visualize at the start or end of the day. Close your eyes and imagine one specific goal. See yourself taking one clear action toward it. Notice how it feels. Keep it realistic. The brain responds better to believable images than exaggerated ones. Another benefit of visualization is improved focus. When the brain has a clear target, it wastes less energy on indecision. Choices become easier, distractions lose their pull, actions feel aligned instead of scattered. This habit is helpful for students, professionals, and anyone working toward long-term goals. It supports learning, discipline, and emotional control. Over time, visualization helps turn intention into behavior. Visualizing goals daily is not about escaping reality, it is about preparing for it. By aligning thoughts with actions in advance, the brain becomes more intentional. Progress feels smoother. Effort feels meaningful. Small daily actions begin to move in the same direction. Setting clear daily intentions to guide focus and decisions. Most days begin without direction. People wake up, check their phone, and react to whatever appears first. Messages, tasks, demands, and distractions start pulling attention in different directions. By the end of the day, the brain feels tired, scattered, and unproductive. Setting clear daily intentions helps prevent this by giving the brain a simple direction to follow. An intention is not a long to-do list. It is a short, clear statement about how you want to show up or what you want to prioritize for the day. It tells the brain what matters most. When the brain has a clear target, it becomes easier to filter distractions and make better decisions. Without intention, the brain defaults to urgency. It reacts to whatever feels loudest or easiest in the moment. This often leads to wasted energy and poor focus. With intention, the brain has a reference point. When a distraction appears, the brain can quickly decide whether it supports the intention or not. Daily intentions work because they simplify thinking. Instead of constantly deciding what to do next, the brain uses the intention as a guide. This reduces decision fatigue and mental overload. Focus improves because attention is no longer spread thin across too many priorities. Intentions can be practical or emotional. A practical intention might be, today I will complete one important task with full focus. An emotional intention might be, today I will respond calmly, even under pressure. Both types shape behavior. They influence how you think, speak, and act throughout the day. Setting intentions also improves emotional regulation. When emotions rise, the brain often reacts automatically. An intention creates a pause. You remember how you chose to respond. This does not remove emotion, but it gives you more control over your behavior. The best time to set intentions is at the start of the day. It takes less than a minute. You can say it quietly, write it down, or think it through. The key is clarity. 1 to 3 intentions are enough. Too many intentions confuse the brain and reduce effectiveness. Another important point is realism. Intentions should be achievable. Unrealistic intentions create pressure and frustration. Simple, grounded intentions keep the brain cooperative and engaged. Throughout the day, returning to your intention helps reset focus. When you feel distracted or stressed, remembering your intention brings clarity. It reminds the brain what matters now. This habit is useful for everyone. Students stay focused during study hours. Working adults make better decisions under pressure. Parents respond with more patience and presence. Over time, days feel more purposeful instead of reactive. Setting clear daily intentions is not about controlling every moment. It is about giving the brain direction. When focus has a guide, decisions become easier, energy is used more wisely, and the mind feels calmer and more organized. Practicing self-discipline through small daily commitments. Self-discipline often sounds heavy and exhausting. Many people imagine strict routines, extreme control, or forcing themselves to do things they dislike. That idea alone creates resistance. In reality, self-discipline is not built through pressure. It is built through small, daily commitments that the brain can trust and repeat. The brain learns discipline through experience. Every time you make a small promise to yourself and keep it, the brain records that success. This builds internal trust. When trust increases, resistance decreases. Tasks feel easier to start because the brain expects follow-through instead of failure. Big commitments often fail because they demand too much at once. When a task feels large or uncomfortable, the brain looks for escape. Small commitments avoid this reaction. They feel manageable. Safe. Easy to begin. This lowers mental resistance and increases consistency. For example, committing to exercise for 1 hour may feel overwhelming. Committing to 5 minutes feels possible. Once started, continuing often happens naturally. Even if it does not, the commitment is still fulfilled. The brain learns that effort does not always lead to exhaustion. This changes how it approaches future tasks. Small daily commitments also reduce procrastination. Procrastination usually comes from fear of effort, not laziness. When the brain knows the task is small, fear drops. Action becomes more likely. Over time, this builds momentum without stress. Another benefit is emotional stability. Keeping small commitments improves self-respect. You stop feeling disappointed in yourself. This reduces negative self-talk and builds confidence. The brain becomes more willing to engage with challenges because past experiences have been positive. The key is choosing commitments that are specific and realistic. Read 1 page. Drink 1 glass of water. Write 1 sentence. Vague commitments confuse the brain. Clear actions guide it. Repetition matters more than intensity. A common mistake is increasing commitments too quickly. This breaks trust. It is better to stay small and consistent than to aim big and quit. Once a habit feels automatic, it can grow naturally without force. This approach works well for brain-supporting habits. Learning, focus, movement, journaling, and sleep routines all benefit from small daily actions. Students build study habits without burnout. Working adults maintain focus without pressure. Parents create routines that fit busy lives. Self-discipline is not about controlling yourself. It is about training the brain to believe in you. Small daily commitments teach the brain that effort is safe and reliable. Over time, discipline becomes a quiet strength instead of a struggle. The brain stops resisting and starts cooperating, 1 small action at a time. Learning 1 new thing each day to build cognitive reserve. The brain stays strong when it is used regularly in meaningful ways. Learning 1 new thing each day is a simple habit that keeps the brain active and flexible. It does not require long study sessions or formal education. Small, consistent learning is enough to build what is known as cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to adapt, cope, and stay sharp over time. Cognitive reserve acts like a buffer. When the brain faces stress, fatigue, or age-related changes, this reserve helps maintain performance. Brains with higher cognitive reserve handle challenges better. They recover faster from mistakes, adapt more easily, and stay mentally resilient. Learning something new activates multiple areas of the brain at once. Attention, memory, reasoning, and curiosity all work together. This strengthens connections between brain cells. Repeating this process daily keeps these connections active and prevents the brain from becoming rigid or passive. The key is novelty. Doing the same tasks every day keeps the brain efficient but not flexible. Learning introduces variation. It forces the brain to adjust and grow. This could be learning a new word, understanding a new concept, reading a short article, or watching something educational. The content matters less than the act of learning itself. Many people believe learning must be time-consuming to be useful. That belief stops them from starting. In reality, learning for 5 to 10 minutes a day is enough. The brain responds to frequency, not length. A small daily learning habit is more powerful than occasional long sessions. This habit also improves confidence. Each new piece of knowledge reinforces the idea that the brain is capable of growth. This mindset reduces fear of challenges and improves willingness to try new things. Over time, learning feels natural instead of intimidating. Another benefit is improved memory. Learning regularly trains the brain to store and retrieve information more efficiently. This helps with daily tasks, problem solving, and communication. The brain becomes quicker and more responsive. Learning one new thing each day also supports emotional health. Curiosity shifts attention away from stress and worry. It gives the mind something constructive to focus on. This can reduce mental fatigue and increase engagement with life. This habit is valuable at any age. Students build stronger learning foundations. Working adults stay mentally sharp. Older adults protect long-term brain health. The brain does not stop benefiting from learning just because formal education ends. The habit works best when learning is intentional but light. Choose something interesting. Keep it simple. Enjoy the process instead of turning it into pressure. Learning one new thing each day is not about achievement. It is about keeping the brain alive and adaptable. Over time, these small moments of learning build a strong cognitive reserve that supports clarity, resilience, and long-term mental strength. Reviewing information regularly to strengthen long-term memory. Learning something once is rarely enough for it to last. The brain is designed to forget information that it does not see as important or useful. This is not a weakness. It is how the brain protects itself from overload. Reviewing information regularly is the habit that tells the brain, "This matters." Keep it. Over time, this habit strengthens long-term memory and makes recall easier. When you first learn something, the memory is fragile. It sits in short-term storage and can fade quickly. Without review, the brain assumes the information is no longer needed. This is why people often forget what they studied just days later. Review interrupts this forgetting process and stabilizes memory. Each time you review information, the brain strengthens the connections linked to that memory. These connections become faster and more reliable. With repetition, the memory moves from short-term storage into long-term storage. This is why reviewing feels easier each time. The brain recognizes the material and requires less effort to process it. Regular review also reduces stress during recall. When information is weakly stored, the brain struggles to access it. This creates anxiety during exams, presentations, or conversations. Strong memory pathways make recall feel natural instead of forced. Confidence improves because the brain trusts its ability to retrieve information. One common mistake is reviewing too much at once. Long review sessions can feel exhausting and discouraging. The brain responds better to short, frequent reviews. Even 5 to 10 minutes is enough. What matters is spacing. Revisiting information across days and weeks strengthens memory more than one long session. Another mistake is rereading passively. Effective review involves active engagement. Summarizing in your own words. Asking simple questions. Explaining the concept out loud. These actions force the brain to retrieve information instead of just recognizing it. Retrieval strengthens memory more than repetition alone. Reviewing information regularly also improves learning speed. When the brain has strong foundations, new information connects more easily. Learning feels smoother. Confusion reduces. This makes study and work more efficient over time. This habit is especially useful for students, professionals, and anyone learning new skills. Students retain material with less last-minute stress. Working adults remember procedures and concepts more clearly. Parents benefit when managing information-heavy responsibilities. Review does not need to feel like studying. It can be light and brief. Glancing at notes. Mentally recalling key points. Teaching someone else. These small actions keep memory active. Reviewing information regularly is not about forcing the brain to remember everything. It is about reinforcing what matters. When review becomes a habit, long-term memory strengthens naturally. Recall becomes easier. Learning becomes more durable. The brain works with you instead of against you. Creating distraction-free study or work zones. The brain focuses best when it knows what is expected in a space. When your study or work area is mixed with distractions, the brain stays alert instead of focused. Creating a distraction-free zone helps the brain shift into a clear mode of attention, where thinking, learning, and problem-solving happen more easily. Distractions are not just noises or people. Visual clutter, open tabs, phones, notifications, and unrelated objects all compete for the brain's attention. Even when you try to ignore them, part of your mental energy is spent resisting. Over time, this drains focus and increases fatigue. A distraction-free zone works because it reduces choice. When the environment offers fewer options, the brain settles faster. It does not have to decide whether to check the phone, look around, or switch tasks. Attention naturally moves toward the work in front of you. This does not require a perfect setup. The goal is clarity, not aesthetics. Start by choosing one specific place for focused work or study. This could be a desk, a table, or even a corner of a room. What matters is consistency. When the brain associates that space with focus, it enters work mode more easily. Removing visual distractions is an important step. Clear the surface of unnecessary items. Keep only what you need for the task. Visual simplicity reduces mental noise. The brain feels less overwhelmed and more organized. Phones are one of the biggest sources of distraction. Keeping the phone out of reach or in another room makes a noticeable difference. When the phone is visible, the brain stays alert for potential notifications, even if none arrive. Removing it allows attention to settle fully. Digital distractions matter as well. Closing unnecessary tabs and applications reduces background mental load. Each open tab represents a possible task. Too many options increase cognitive strain. Fewer options support deeper focus. Sound also affects concentration. For some people, silence works best. For others, steady background sounds help block sudden noise. The key is consistency. Sudden changes in sound pull attention away. A stable sound environment helps the brain stay engaged. Creating boundaries around the space is equally important. Let others know when the space is being used for focus. Even short interruptions reset attention and increase the time needed to refocus. Protecting this space protects mental energy. This habit benefits students, professionals, and anyone working with information. Students retain material better. Working adults complete tasks faster with fewer errors. Parents manage responsibilities with less mental exhaustion. A distraction-free zone is not about isolation. It is about intention. You are telling your brain, this space is for focus. Over time, the brain responds automatically. Concentration improves. Work feels light. Mental clarity becomes easier to access because the environment supports it instead of fighting it. Spending time with mentally empowering people. The people you spend time with have a stronger influence on your brain than you may realize. Conversations, attitudes, and emotional tone shape how the brain thinks, reacts, and interprets situations. Spending time with mentally empowering people supports focus, confidence, and emotional balance, often without conscious effort. Mentally empowering people are not perfect or always positive. They are people who encourage growth, responsibility, and problem-solving. They speak in ways that move things forward instead of keeping you stuck. When you spend time with such people, your brain naturally adapts to their patterns of thinking. The brain is highly responsive to social cues. When you are around people who complain constantly, criticize often, or focus on fear and limitation, the brain absorbs that tone. Over time, thinking becomes more negative and reactive. Motivation drops. Stress increases. This happens even if you try to stay positive. In contrast, empowering people model healthier mental habits. They focus on solutions instead of blame. They talk about effort, learning, and improvement. They take responsibility for their actions. Being around this mindset trains the brain to think more constructively. Challenges feel manageable instead of overwhelming. Spending time with empowering people also improves emotional regulation. These individuals tend to respond calmly under pressure. When you witness calm responses repeatedly, your brain learns that calm is possible. Emotional reactions soften. Perspective improves. You become less reactive without forcing change. Another benefit is improved self-belief. Empowering people reflect strengths instead of only pointing out flaws. This does not inflate ego. It builds realistic confidence. The brain becomes more willing to try, learn, and persist because it feels supported instead of judged. This habit also affects focus and productivity. Conversations with empowering people tend to be purposeful. They energize instead of draining. After such interactions, many people feel clearer and more motivated. The brain leaves the interaction with direction instead of confusion. A common mistake is believing you must completely remove negative people from your life. That is not always realistic. The goal is balance and boundaries. Increase time with empowering influences. Reduce exposure where possible. Even small shifts matter. Mentally empowering people do not have to be physically present all the time. Books, podcasts, and thoughtful content can also shape the brain. The brain responds to repeated exposure, regardless of the source. This habit is especially important for students shaping their identity, professionals under pressure, and parents managing emotional demands. The brain becomes more resilient when it regularly experiences constructive perspectives. Spending time with mentally empowering people is not about dependency, it is about environment. Just as the brain responds to physical surroundings, it responds to social surroundings. When your environment supports growth, your brain naturally moves in that direction. Thoughts become clearer. Emotions stabilize. Confidence strengthens quietly over time. Limiting exposure to negative or toxic content. What you repeatedly consume shapes how your brain thinks and feels. This applies not only to food, but also to information. News, social media, videos, conversations, and online discussions all enter the brain and leave an impression. When exposure to negative or toxic content becomes constant, the brain stays in a stressed and reactive state. Limiting this exposure is an important habit for protecting mental clarity and emotional balance. Negative content often focuses on fear, conflict, outrage, or comparison. While occasional exposure is unavoidable, constant exposure trains the brain to expect problems everywhere. The brain becomes alert even when nothing is wrong. Stress hormones stay elevated. Focus becomes harder to maintain. Small issues start to feel bigger than they are. Toxic content also affects mood and self-perception. Content that encourages comparison, blame, or hopelessness slowly weakens confidence. The brain begins to internalize these messages, even if you consciously disagree with them. Over time, motivation drops and emotional reactions become stronger. Another issue is mental fatigue. Negative content demands emotional processing. Each story, comment, or argument takes mental energy. When this happens repeatedly, the brain becomes tired without producing anything useful. By the end of the day, focus is low and patience is gone. Limiting exposure does not mean ignoring reality. It means choosing how much and when you engage. The brain functions better when it processes information intentionally instead of constantly reacting. Setting boundaries around content gives the brain time to recover. A helpful first step is awareness. Notice how certain content makes you feel. If you feel drained, anxious, or irritated afterward, that content is costing your brain energy. Awareness alone often reduces consumption. Another effective strategy is controlling timing. Avoid consuming negative content early in the morning or late at night. These times strongly influence mood and sleep. Choosing neutral or positive input during these periods helps stabilize the brain. Curating content also matters. Unfollow sources that constantly promote outrage or fear. Choose information that is informative rather than emotionally charged. This reduces unnecessary stimulation while keeping you informed. Replacing toxic content with empowering or neutral material makes a difference. Educational content, thoughtful discussions, or calming activities give the brain something constructive to engage with. This improves focus and emotional regulation. This habit is especially important for students, professionals, and parents. Students concentrate better. Working adults make clearer decisions. Parents remain more patient and present. The brain becomes less reactive and more grounded. Limiting exposure to negative or toxic content is not about avoidance. It is about protection. Attention and emotional energy are limited resources. When you protect them, the brain functions more clearly and calmly. Over time, thinking becomes more balanced, focus improves, and emotional resilience strengthens naturally. Tracking habits consistently to reinforce behavior change. Change feels difficult when progress is invisible. Many good habits fail not because they do not work, but because the brain does not see evidence that they are working. Tracking habits consistently solves this problem. It turns effort into visible progress and reinforces behavior change in a way the brain understands. The brain is motivated by feedback. When you track a habit, you create a clear signal that something is happening. Each checkmark, note, or record tells the brain, "I showed up." This builds momentum. Without tracking, the brain forgets past effort and focuses only on how hard the habit feels today. Tracking also builds awareness. Many people believe they are inconsistent, when in reality they are more consistent than they think. Seeing patterns on paper or a screen corrects this distorted self-image. The brain becomes more confident because effort is acknowledged instead of dismissed. Another benefit of tracking is clarity. When a habit breaks, tracking helps you see why. You notice patterns like lack of sleep, busy days, or emotional stress. This shifts the brain from self-criticism to problem-solving. Instead of saying "I failed," you ask, "What made this harder?" That question strengthens resilience. Tracking works best when it is simple. Overcomplicated systems create resistance. A basic checklist, calendar mark, or short note is enough. The goal is consistency, not detail. The easier the system, the more likely the brain will stick with it. Tracking also reduces reliance on motivation. Motivation changes daily. A visible record does not. On low-energy days, tracking reminds you of past consistency. This often nudges the brain to continue even when motivation is low. Another powerful effect is identity reinforcement. When you track a habit regularly, the brain starts associating that behavior with who you are. I am someone who shows up. This identity shift makes habits easier to maintain long-term. A common mistake is tracking too many habits at once. This overwhelms the brain and reduces follow-through. 1 to 3 habits is enough. Let them stabilize before adding more. Tracking is especially useful for brain-supporting habits like sleep, focus, movement, learning, and reflection. Students stay consistent with study routines. Working adults maintain focus habits. Parents manage routines with less mental load. Tracking does not need to be permanent. It is a training tool. Once a habit becomes automatic, tracking can be reduced or stopped. The behavior remains because the brain has learned it. Tracking habits consistently is not about control or perfection. It is about visibility. When the brain can see progress, it cooperates. Effort feels worthwhile. Change feels possible. Over time, small tracked actions turn into stable behaviors that no longer require constant effort. Reflecting weekly on progress to strengthen self-awareness. Most people move through their weeks on autopilot. They stay busy, handle tasks, and deal with problems as they come. Then the next week starts, and the cycle repeats. Without reflection, the brain stays in reaction mode. Weekly reflection is the habit that slows things down just enough for awareness to grow. Self-awareness is not about judging yourself. It is about understanding patterns. When you reflect weekly, you give the brain time to look back and make sense of what happened. What worked, what did not. What felt easy, what felt draining. This understanding helps the brain make better decisions going forward. Without reflection, the brain relies on emotion to evaluate progress. If the week felt stressful, it assumes nothing went well. If the week felt busy, it assumes there was no progress. Reflection adds accuracy. It shows effort that emotions often ignore. This reduces unnecessary self-criticism and builds realistic confidence. Weekly reflection also improves learning. When you review experiences, the brain connects actions with outcomes. You begin to see cause and effect more clearly. For example, you may notice that better sleep led to better focus, or that too many commitments caused mental fatigue. These insights are powerful because they come from your own experience, not advice from others. This habit does not require long sessions. 10 to 15 minutes is enough. The goal is not to analyze everything. The goal is to notice a few key points. Simple questions work well. What went well this week? What was difficult? What did I learn? What would I adjust next week? These questions guide the brain toward clarity instead of rumination. Reflection also strengthens emotional regulation. When emotions are processed weekly, they do not build up unchecked. Small frustrations are acknowledged instead of ignored. This prevents emotional overload and reduces sudden reactions. The brain feels more settled because nothing important is being avoided. Another benefit is alignment. Weekly reflection helps you see whether your actions match your intentions. If they do not, you notice early. This allows small course corrections instead of major resets later. Progress feels more intentional and less chaotic. A common mistake is turning reflection into self-judgment. That weakens the habit. Reflection should feel calm and curious, not critical. The brain learns best when it feels safe. Treat reflection as a conversation with yourself, not a performance review. This habit is useful for everyone. Students understand their study patterns better. Working adults manage energy more wisely. Parents become more aware of emotional triggers and needs. Over time, the brain becomes more observant and less reactive. Reflecting weekly is not about dwelling on the past. It is about learning from it. When awareness increases, choices improve. Progress becomes clearer. The brain stops repeating the same mistakes because it finally sees them. Self-awareness grows quietly, one honest reflection at a time. Maintaining a balanced daily routine to reduce mental fatigue. Mental fatigue often comes from imbalance, not from doing too much. When days are unstructured or heavily skewed toward one type of activity, the brain gets overloaded. Long hours of work without breaks, constant screen use, irregular meals, or no clear start and end to the day, all drain mental energy. Maintaining a balanced daily routine helps the brain distribute effort more evenly and reduces this fatigue. The brain works best when it can predict what comes next. A routine provides that structure. When daily activities follow a loose but consistent pattern, the brain spends less energy on decision-making. This preserves mental resources for thinking, learning, and problem-solving. Without routine, even small choices add up and exhaust the brain. Balance does not mean rigid scheduling. It means including a mix of activities that support different brain needs. Focused work, movement, rest, social interaction, and quiet time all serve a purpose. When one area dominates the day, fatigue increases. For example, too much focus without movement leads to mental fog. Too much stimulation without rest leads to irritability. A balanced routine also supports energy regulation. Regular meals stabilize brain fuel. Planned breaks prevent overload. Consistent sleep and wake times help recovery. These elements work together. When one is missing, the brain compensates by working harder, which increases fatigue. Many people experience mental exhaustion because their days have no clear boundaries. Work blends into rest. Screens fill every gap. The brain never fully switches modes. Creating a routine with clear transitions helps. Starting the day intentionally and ending it calmly signals the brain when to engage and when to rest. Another benefit of a balanced routine is emotional stability. When the brain knows there is time for rest and recovery later, it tolerates effort better. Stress feels temporary instead of endless. This improves mood and patience throughout the day. A common mistake is trying to optimize every minute. That creates pressure and rigidity. Balance works best when the routine is flexible. It should support you, not control you. Small adjustments are enough. Adding a short walk, scheduling meals, setting a rough end time for work. This habit is especially helpful for students managing study load, professionals handling deadlines, and parents balancing multiple responsibilities. A balanced routine reduces decision fatigue and keeps mental energy steady. Maintaining a balanced daily routine is not about perfection. Some days will be messy. That is normal. The goal is consistency over time. When the brain experiences regular balance, mental fatigue decreases. Focus improves. Recovery becomes easier. The mind feels less drained because effort and rest are working together instead of competing. Prioritizing recovery and rest to prevent cognitive burnout. Cognitive burnout does not happen suddenly. It builds slowly when the brain is asked to perform without enough recovery. Many people push through mental fatigue, believing rest is a reward that must be earned. In reality, rest is a requirement for the brain to function well. Prioritizing recovery is one of the most important habits for preventing burnout and protecting long-term cognitive health. The brain consumes a large amount of energy every day. Thinking, focusing, decision-making, emotional control, and learning all require effort. When this effort continues without adequate rest, the brain enters a state of depletion. Focus becomes unstable. Memory weakens. Motivation drops. Emotional reactions become stronger. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs that recovery is missing. Recovery is more than just sleep, although sleep is a major part of it. Recovery also includes mental rest during the day. Quiet moments, breaks from stimulation, time without demands. When the brain never gets these pauses, it stays in a low-level stress state. Over time, this leads to burnout. One common mistake is treating rest as inactivity. Rest does not always mean doing nothing. It means giving the brain a break from effortful thinking. Light movement, calm conversations, quiet walks, or simple activities that do not demand concentration can all support recovery. These moments allow the brain to reset without shutting down completely. Another issue is ignoring early signs of burnout. Many people wait until exhaustion is severe before resting. By then, recovery takes longer. Regular rest prevents this build-up. Short breaks throughout the day and planned recovery time each week keep mental energy stable. Prioritizing recovery also improves performance. A rested brain works faster, makes fewer mistakes, and handles stress better. When recovery is built into the routine, focus becomes more consistent and learning improves. Productivity often increases, even though less time is spent pushing. Mental recovery also supports emotional balance. When the brain is rested, emotions feel manageable. Frustration passes more quickly. Patience increases. Relationships improve because reactions are calmer and more thoughtful. A helpful habit is scheduling recovery just like work. If rest is optional, it is often skipped. When it is planned, the brain feels safer using energy during work periods. It knows recovery is coming. This habit is essential for students, professionals, and parents. Students avoid burnout during long study periods. Working adults maintain clarity under pressure. Parents protect emotional energy while managing responsibilities. Prioritizing recovery and rest is not about doing less. It is about sustaining effort over time. The brain is not designed to operate at full capacity without breaks. When recovery becomes a priority, burnout loses its grip. Focus improves. Motivation stabilizes. The brain remains strong, clear, and capable for the long run. Practicing gratitude regularly to support emotional and mental health. Gratitude is often misunderstood as forced positivity or ignoring problems. In reality, gratitude is a mental habit that trains the brain to notice what is stable and supportive even during difficulty. When practiced regularly, gratitude strengthens emotional balance and protects mental health by shifting how the brain processes everyday experiences. The brain naturally focuses on problems. This is not pessimism, it is survival wiring. The brain scans for threats and unfinished issues. While this is useful, it can create a constant sense of stress when left unchecked. Gratitude gently balances this tendency. It reminds the brain that not everything is wrong at the same time. When you practice gratitude, the brain shifts attention away from what is missing toward what is present. This does not remove challenges, but it changes how heavily they weigh on your mind. Stress feels less overwhelming because the brain is no longer focused on a single negative stream of thought. Regular gratitude practice also improves emotional regulation. Strong emotions often come from feeling out of control or unsupported. Gratitude highlights moments of support, progress, or stability. This reduces emotional intensity and helps the brain respond with more calm and perspective. Gratitude works because it is specific. General statements feel empty. The brain responds better to concrete examples. Noticing one good conversation, one completed task, or one moment of calm is enough. These small acknowledgements build emotional resilience over time. Another benefit is improved mental clarity. When the brain is constantly focused on dissatisfaction, thinking becomes narrow. Gratitude expands perspective. It allows the brain to see situations more realistically, instead of through constant frustration or comparison. Gratitude also supports relationships. When appreciation is expressed or even silently noticed, social interactions feel warmer and less tense. The brain interprets social environments as safer, which lowers stress and improves communication. A common mistake is treating gratitude as something you should feel. Gratitude is not a feeling you wait for. It is an action you practice. Writing one or two things down each day, or mentally noting them before sleep, is enough. Consistency matters more than emotion. This habit is especially helpful during stressful periods. Students manage pressure better. Working adults avoid emotional burnout. Parents maintain patience during demanding days. Gratitude does not remove responsibility, but it reduces emotional load. Practicing gratitude regularly does not mean pretending life is perfect. It means giving the brain a fuller picture of reality. When appreciation becomes part of daily thinking, emotional health strengthens. The mind feels steadier. Stress softens. Mental energy becomes more available for what truly matters. Gratitude is a quiet habit, but its impact is long-lasting. When practiced consistently, it supports a calmer, more resilient, and healthier mind.